Are you guys prepared for this? All right, so we're going to be talking about a TGC article, a Gospel Coalition article that by the time, you may see this, maybe it's gone. Hopefully it is. But I think it's actually something important that we need to talk about, not just because it's ridiculous and we're going to poke fun at it. I can't help it. I can't help it. This is too much. When we start going through this thing, you'll understand. But also, despite it being ridiculous, kind of funny, it's also really, really bad theologically. And I want to discuss that a little bit too. So if you aren't on Twitter, yesterday, man, like this article is bad and it shouldn't have been written, but yesterday was a pretty fun day on Twitter. So if you're not on Twitter, maybe you haven't heard about this article. Maybe you don't go to Gospel Coalition every day and check in with what they're writing. But they wrote an article that is pretty explicit. Like they actually wrote something that, again, I think it's funny, and I'm going to poke fun at it, and I get it that they're like, I've got caveats. Okay, I'll talk about that in a sec. But like it's really gross. So if you are watching with kids, because I don't talk about this stuff. I'm not one of those Christian YouTubers who's constantly like, the thing about dating and we gotta keep it in your pants and like there's so many YouTubers that do that kind of stuff, and whatever. It's not anything I ever want to discuss on my channel. But today, if you're watching with kids, get them out of the room. Get some headphones on because we're gonna read a Gospel Coalition article. It's so weird that we have to say that. It's so weird. This article is bizarre in so many ways, but also troubling, and we'll talk about how it's troubling. But first, we're gonna poke fun at it because it is nuts. I'll leave that joke on the table. All right, let's start with this thing. Again, I'm giving all the warnings. Maybe I should have that. I should put like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. YouTube might be like, then maybe it is actually something. It's explicit for Christians, okay? So this is the article. You've probably seen it by now. So this is it the first one? I think it's the first article from the Tim Keller Center for Cultural Apologetics or whatever they're doing. Right out of the gate. Oh, okay. So Josh Butler, who has a book coming, and we'll talk about that. He decided that this was a good thing to write and to put on the internet, and a bunch of editors thought the same thing. We'll talk about the wisdom of all that in a little bit, but let's just get into this thing. Okay, so the article is called "Sex Won't Save You, but It Points to the One Who Will." Yesterday, I did a stream about the Gospel Coalition, and I was like kind of putting some pieces together. Maybe you want to go and check that stream out after. But I saw the title for this article. This was before everyone was talking about it. This was early yesterday morning, and I was like, "That's so stupid." Like that, I'm not reading that. And I probably should have just to see what they were talking about. But all right, let's get into it. Some of this is going to be in good fun, me poking. Some other things I'm going to be serious about. But all right. I used to look for sex or to sex for salvation. Opening statement. Very odd. Okay. I wanted it to liberate me from loneliness. Okay. I wanted to find freedom in the arms of another, but the search failed. My college sweetheart dumped me, and I put it on the internet. I found a rebound to feel better about myself and hurt her in the process. I then fell head over heels for the girl of my dreams at the time and spent the next 5 years pining after this friend who didn't feel the same. Oh, we've all been there, the friend zone. I wanted to feel wanted, yet I wound up alone. Our culture looks to sex for salvation too. I would not put it in those words. When like as an escape, sure. To feel something, sure. But for salvation, this is when we like hang out way too long in just strictly Christian circles and we start using language that is just odd and other people are just like, What? We want romance to free us from solitary confinement, to deliver us into a welcome embrace. But idolizing sex results in slavery. You can chart up your long list of ex lovers and join Taylor Swift and telling the newest applicant, I've got a blank space, baby, and I'll write your name. I'm going to be so red in the face as I read this. Oh, my goodness. Okay, Gospel Coalition, let's go. You can end up in Egypt for a new romantic wasteland, more cynical and isolated than when you first began. Yet I've discovered a crucial corrective in the gospel that can lead us out into true freedom. Sex wasn't designed to be your salvation, but to point you to the one who is. I mean, kind of. Oh, sex is an icon. All right, let's stop for a second there. What the heck, Gospel Coalition? Are we cool? We cool with icons now? Like, we're supposed to be reformed. I thought that's what the Gospel Coalition was about, of being reformed, at least in some ways, vaguely reformed in our theology, not carrying over strictly Catholic ideas like icons. Sex is an icon of Christ in the church. Like, I get what he's saying. He's trying to be like a picture, but also we just don't see it. We just don't see that in scripture. This isn't an accurate statement right here. Marriage is the picture of Christ and the church, not sex. Like, this is the one thing, like, this is born. I want you to understand. Like, it's funny. We'll get into some like stuff that's just like really out there, but like, this is where hyper complementarianism goes. It messes with your mind and you start putting these pieces together. Like, this passage, like Ephesians 5, the whole idea of, like the priest, and like the idea of, that the husband is supposed to be like the priest of the home because Jesus does all these things for the church. That's like descriptive of Jesus. The metaphor is that a husband should love his wife. The metaphor of marriage, and even here when it's talking about like the two shall become one flesh, is that they're together. It's not like all the intricate details of how that works. That's gross. That's not what we're supposed to do with Jesus. Like, it's so weird to even have to say this kind of stuff. But this is what happens when you have like that extreme ideology of, okay, if this is a metaphor that we see in scripture, then everything that we truly experience about this metaphor applies to this passage and we read that in. The two shall become one flesh is just about you becoming one, like the Trinity is one. Like, it's not about what parts fit in what places. Oh, why do I have to say this stuff? All right. A Hall of Fame marriage passage. The apostle, let's try to keep it PG-13. Not that the Gospel Coalition did, okay? But if you're hopping into the chat here and you're just like, let's go. I'm loading all the tweets I put out yesterday. Let's try to keep it PG-13 in the chat. But like, oh my goodness. Okay. A Hall of Fame marriage passage. The Apostle Paul proclaims, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery. But I'm talking about Christ and the church. And he talks about that. All right. Now, the context here is marriage. Leave and cleave is marriage language, and the surrounding verses are all about husbands and wives, not hookup culture. Okay. Yet the second part about two becoming one flesh is consummation language that refers to the union of husband and wife. Accurate so far. Paul says both are about Christ and the church. This should be shocking. It's not only the giving of your vows at the altar, but what happens in the honeymoon suite afterward that speaks to the life you were made for with God. A husband and wife's life of faithful love is designed to point to greater things. Not greater things. One greater thing. The two shall become one flesh. All right. It's talking about how the Trinity is one. We don't have to, like, it's not, like, they just go like deep in on this thing. It's nuts. But so is their sexual union! Exclamation point. This is a gospel bombshell. Sex, again, what? An icon of salvation. Is he just using that as a substitute for image, picture? Because, like this is the Gospel Coalition. This is supposed to be about theology. Like, if you're going to use theological language like an icon, like, are we not supposed to assume that you mean that as that theological language? Like, that's bizarre to me. That's just like, it's not really like the point of this, but it's just like, what is happening here? All right. How I'd suggest the language of generosity. Here we go. Are the kids gone? I'm just saying. I'd suggest the language of generosity and hospitality can help us out. Generosity and hospitality are both embodied in the sexual act. This is on the gospelcoalition.org. It's still up. By the time I'm recording this, I'm looking at the website. This isn't a PDF, although I did save it just in case. But okay. Think about it. Generosity involves, think about it. I want you to think about it. How about we not think about it? Think about it. Generosity involves giving extravagantly to someone. You give the best you've got to give. Lavishly, that word's gross, pouring out your time, energy, or money. At a deeper level, generosity is giving not just your resources, but your very self. And what deeper form of self-giving is there than sexual union where the husband, or the kid's gone, please get them out of the room, where the husband pours out his very presence, not only upon, but within his wife. What is going on?
What's wrong with you people?
Oh my goodness. Like, it's such weird language, first off. It's completely inappropriate to put on a theological website. Like, yes, we're all adults, or at least most of the people who are reading this are adults or watching this probably are adults. We understand what sex is and how men and women have sex, what that all entails. We get it. Do we have to read about it in this kind of language? What is this? This is like theological erotica. Like, this is like the smut kind of reading of like those like westerns, or like it's always like, oh, it's pioneer times, and like weirdo stuff like that. Oh my goodness, it's just,
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
It's so weird to see that in this context here. Okay, let's keep on going. Hospitality, on the other hand, involves receiving the life of the other. You prepare a space for the guest to enter your home, welcoming him, again, or the kid's gone, warmly into your circle of intimacy to share your dwelling place with you. Here again, what deeper form of hospitality is there than sexual union, where the wife welcomes her husband into the sanctuary of her very self? What? It's just,
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
This is so crazy. Giving and receiving are at the heart of sex. Obviously, a man and woman both give to each other and receive from each other in the sexual act. Sex is mutual, self-giving, yet on closer inspection, do we need to? Let's just not. There's a distinction between the male and female sides of the equation. The Bible makes this distinction explicit. The most frequent Hebrew phrase for sex is literally, he went into her. Translated often soften this for modern ears, saying he made love to her or they slept together. They knew one another. That's what it is. But the Bible is less prudish than we are, using more graphic language to describe what happens in the honeymoon. Or it's just, like a different context and they would understand things differently, whatever. One Sunday morning, I learned how graphic this language can be. Great. Tell us all about it. My friend Karen was publicly reading scripture for our church service, and we'd recently switched to a more literal Bible translation. We were in Genesis 29, where Jacob marries Leah and Rachel, and the phrase Wayabo Aleha, I don't know, Hebrews a long time ago, shows up a lot. Karen has, you might say, a rated G personality. Very prim, proper, and polite. We all saw her cheeks turn bright red with a lot of awkward pauses. Maybe there was more going on here, like this article, as she had to continually read the phrase and Jacob went into her over and over again. After that Sunday, we went back to a less wooden translation and laughed a lot with poor Karen. I'm sure she totally enjoyed it and is so thankful that you put it in a frickin' article. The Hebrew language is onto something, however. There's a distinction between the male-female roles in sexual union. Each brings something unique, and the fusing of two bodies is one. And this distinction is iconic. On that honeymoon in Cabo, the groom goes into the bride. Here we go. Man, just keeps on going. He is not only with his beloved, but within his beloved. He enters the sanctuary of his spouse, where he pours out his deepest presence and bestows an offering, a gift, a sign of his pilgrimage. What is going on? TGC are like editors. What is wrong with you? For real. All right. Is it funny? Kinda. Minus the kinda. It is funny to read this. But it's also deeply troubling that this went through. Like, guys, Gospel Coalition doesn't just push out articles. It isn't just like, hey, you got something, send it to me. Send me the article and we'll put it up right now. It's not like that. All right, there are rounds of editing. Go and look at their website. Look at all their editors. This went from round after round after round, and now is in front of thousands of people. And this is going to be a book, guys. This is a book from a major publisher. We'll talk about that in a while, I guess, once we get through our pilgrimage. And that has the potential to grow within her into new life. Great. Biology. This is a picture of the gospel. Is it? Christ arrives in salvation. All right. So this is where, like, the rest is gross. And I think that there are troubling things to talk about the way they view men and women, specifically here in the sexual act. Like the husband is like, it's generosity that he like has sex with his wife. Like that's weird ideology right there. But now we're getting into stuff that's just like, all right, don't talk about Jesus here. All right. This is a picture of the gospel. Christ arrives in salvation to be not only with his church, but within his church. That's gross. Christ gives himself to his beloved with extravagant generosity, showing his love upon us. Showering his love upon us and imparting his very presence within us. This is why people think Christians are weird. Okay, like this weirdo talk like this. This is kind of like when probably people blame the Romans, but the Romans probably were like probably told what communion was, and like they were like, "Wait, cannibals?" Like they were told probably a very weird version like this, and next thing you know, they all believed that Christians were cannibals. Like this is how this kind of stuff happens. uh, Christ penetrates his church with the generative seed of his word and the life-giving presence of his spirit, which takes root within her and grows to bring new life into the world. I would argue this is heretical. This right here. All right, when you start saying that Jesus like does this kind of sexual acts, like, because again, I mean, you just talk about like the sacredness of marriage and how that's different than hookup culture. All right, when you start talking about Jesus in this kind of way, I think that you're doing injustice to the godhood of Jesus, and in a way, who he is as a man. Conversely, back in the wedding suite, the bride embraces her most intimate guest on the threshold of her dwelling place. Gross. And welcomes him into the sanctuary of her very self. We got some people hopping in the chat. Just a lot of like, what? Yeah, it's messed up. All right. Inversely, back in the wedding suite, Monsieur, I'm going to ban you talking about needing help. I don't know what that means, but if you actually do need help, there are proper authorities that you can talk to. Too many things on the internet of being like, this is weird. All right. Sorry. If you actually need help, talk to, the local authorities, I guess. I don't know. Like I'm in my basement on the internet. I don't know. Inversely, back in the wedding suite, all that stuff. Let's definitely not read that again. All right. Lastly, here, we're coming to the end. Similarly, the church embraces Christ in salvation, celebrating his arrival with joy and delight. She has prepared and made herself ready, anticipating his advent in eager anticipation. She welcomes him into the most vulnerable place of her being, lavishing herself upon him with extravagant hospitality. She receives his generous gift within her. Oh, how generous the husbands are. The seed of his word and presence of his spirit, partnering with him to bring children of God into the world. Their union brings forth new creation. As if we're Mormon or something. Like, what the heck is that? That last sentence. Their union brings forth new creation. All right. So we did it. we read the article. And all right, let's we can make fun of this all day, and to be honest, I kind of did yesterday. Like, go on to Twitter. Oh man, there are some great tweets. Yesterday was like old school Twitter. David, will I be joining the Keller Center mailing list on this example? No. I just, this is what you wanted to be like, here's what we're doing. Aren't you excited about this? Like, no, this is bizarre. Yeah, I've gone bright red, says Lel. Right? It's, what is going on? I get, okay, I get some of these, academic types, they love poetry and I love poetry too. I'm not trying to like make fun of that, but like they think that they're poets. This is not poetry, okay? This is not like, oh, I'm just trying to use this language to communicate an idea and I'm just so creative. We don't get to be creative about the metaphors that are in the Bible. We don't get to do that. We don't get to be creative about the theology in the Bible. We don't get to be creative about the metaphors that are in the Bible. They're there. And they are meant to communicate certain ideas. And metaphors are meant for one specific point, okay? They're meant to communicate a message from the original writer to the original audience. It's simple hermeneutics to be able to just say, this is what this author was trying to communicate using this metaphor. The metaphor is, yes, of sexual union, but not like this. Not this. Words I should probably not say on YouTube because they don't like certain words, but I'll just say this is explicit. Like this article is. And it doesn't need to be because we don't see anything like this in scripture. We just see, okay, marriage is a picture like the man and woman coming together and becoming one unit, one family unit is the same idea for that it's a picture, not an icon. Okay, Josh, not an icon, a picture of Jesus and his church becoming one. It's a picture of the Trinity being one, but not like this. Not to like use like these specific words and like get gross about detailing things. Like I don't want to be super judgmental of people. All right. I literally just did a stream on Monday where I was talking highly of like Gospel Coalition, what they were doing with that good faith debate with Jen Wilkin and Jonathan Pennington. I thought that was good, and it was a good, helpful discussion. So the Gospel Coalition does good stuff, but I just don't understand how this got through. Like, is it funny? Yes. All right. Like, and we can kind of be like, whoa, this is just so weird. And that there's a humor to that. But like the ideology that goes behind some of this stuff, the hyper complementarianism, and what I mean by that is like the husband being looked at as like a generous, like benevolent person because he's having sex with his wife. Like, what? It's just so weird, the language that they describe, like generosity and hospitality, to be able to communicate like what is happening between a man and his wife. Like, that's gross. That's gross. And I think there's more stuff behind there. But then you start talking about Jesus in sexual terms. The Bible doesn't do that. It just doesn't do that. The two shall become one flesh. Yes, it's a general idea. You don't need to go into the details of what that looks like. This is the weirdo love child. I guess good language to use for this thing. But this is like the weirdo love child of that philosophy. Maybe you hold this. I think it's gross. But Song of Solomon of it's really about Jesus and his church or Jesus and his people. Like, no, it's just a husband and a wife and their love for one another. And when you have like the kind of ideology that it's Jesus and his church, that's where this kind of weirdo talk about like the inner workings of some of these metaphors, like that's where it gets really, really weird and can go down the road toward heresy. Not just bad teaching, not just false teaching, full on heresy. Like if you're going to describe Jesus in like these physical terms and you're really negating his godhood and you're belittling his humanity, this ain't right. This ain't right. I think it's flippant. I think it was Joe Thorne had a couple good tweets about this. Not that he's not associated with the show for those people who want to go but I thought that Joe had some pretty good stuff to say about it. And one of the things was that it's breaking the third commandment. It's taking the Lord's name in vain. Like this is taking the Lord's name in vain where you're so flippant and you're bringing his name down. Like there's a reason why when you stub your toe, you don't say God's name because you're using God's name to talk about filth. And I mean, you read it. Like, it's kind of what's happening here. So what can TGC do about this? Get rid of the article and do it now. Stop getting like they deleted the tweet, the original tweet that started going around and everyone was quote tweeting it and some of it was really funny. but they deleted that, but they didn't delete everything. Actually, let me see something here. Um, yeah, I could do it. Let me share that to, where do I want to put it? I will put it on my MacBook. Just a sec. And I'll show you what Brett McCracken had to say about this. So odd. Brett McCracken is one of like the main guys at TGC. And when he was describing this yesterday, and he still has the tweet up, at least as of just a couple minutes before the stream, he decided to say this. So Brett says, one of today's best Christian thinkers on theology of sex and gender is this guy, Josh. His forthcoming book, Beautiful Union, which is also weird in the description. Someone pointed this out. In the description of the article, which I guess we could just come over here and read. Don't need that. Let's see. Josh Butler serves as lead pastor of Redemption Tempe in Arizona. I'm not trying to like dox the guy. It's on the page, okay? Is the author of the critically acclaimed books Beautiful Union. It hasn't come out. Like, how do you say something is critically acclaimed when it hasn't even been published yet? Like, what is that about? Like, is that just a mistake that someone made in listing his books? I think it's really weird. But his forthcoming book, Beautiful Union, is the Protestant magnum opus on sexual ethics. Guys, this is basically like from the first chapter of his book, just like a condensed version of what he talks about in his book. Do you guys see the magnum opus on sexual ethics that we've been waiting for? Who's waiting for this? I don't know. Like, who's waiting on this thing and being like, oh, I just can't wait for the magnum opus on sexual ethics. All right, but we've been waiting for it. At least he has. Don't miss this TGC exclusive excerpt from the book. This is so weird. This is an L. Like, this is a huge L, and I'm kind of shocked that it went through so many steps in getting out into the world. This should have been stopped at some point. And again, a major publisher is going to be publishing this. This is Multnomah. Multnomah is going to be publishing this. Like, I'm not in like the business of like cancel culture for stuff, for everything, but like this book should be canceled. I'm sorry, Josh. Go write about something else like this, or at least change. Go into your like edit. Find another editor and start editing this thing, because if this is what the book is, if this is accurate to what the book describes, like that's just not good. I don't think it's healthy for people. It's definitely not what we need. It isn't the magnum opus that we've been waiting for on sexual ethics. And this article was just so weird, so odd. But let me know, what do you think? What do you think about this? Do you think, like, why? Why did Gospel Coalition put this thing out there? Why haven't they taken it down? I have literally not seen any person come to its defense. All right, we know that everything is polarized right now in culture and life, on Twitter especially. And this is the one thing that united everybody, is that this is gross, inappropriate, and verging on that line of even heretical. So maybe take it down. Like, I'm sure that would probably hurt Josh's feelings. I'm not going to go out on a limb for a guy. I don't know. Like, I don't know the guy. But I'm sure he's got other good things to say. I can say that. I'm sure he has other good things to say, but this ain't it. And I don't think we need anything even close to it. Hey, you know what, guys, like Winsome, I get it. The fact that this guy's publicity photo makes him look like Malcolm Gladwell knockoff makes me think he's just trying to sell books. Well, here's the thing, man. Like I look like a crazy person in my my bio too. So, I don't know if that's a indicator of really anything. Um, and let's see. This was a solid article, says Jeremy. What? All right, you saw it. We're gonna end the stream before Jeremy has the time to say that this was a joke. Uh, oh crap, he already did. Let's stick with this one. Let's see. Jeremy Collins of Jeremy Collins YouTube channel says this was a solid article. Let's put that like that should be like the thing that we put all over the internet. Jeremy Collins says this was a solid article. Just kidding, just kidding. All right. Well, this was kind of fun, kind of weird. I don't know if I'll be streaming tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. But I wanted to talk about this thing while it's up, and maybe I don't know. Not that I have any sway whatsoever, but I think people should keep on pushing for TGC to take this thing down because this is ridiculous. But again, let me know what you think down in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that is. Have a good one.